I think an exciting time to be in the food industry, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you think, for you guys, is the most exciting part of being involved in the food industry at the moment?
Yeah, so Tony, thank you very much for your overview of the future of food. And I think it's really exciting because there's a lot happening and also the technology is progressing really fast. And I think that the things that are exciting is that the new technologies are coming in to solve the problems that we are having. You know, for example, with the increasing population, with the healthy lifestyles that people need, and with the, COVID situation, so people want to build their immunity, and also with the limited resources, with the aging population as well. So with all these problems, technology is coming into play to solve these problems. And I think with the technology that's coming in, it's not only food technology, as you said, right? It's a combination of other technologies as well. For example, AI, biotechnology, cellular technology. So actually now in the world of food technology, it's not only food technology that you mix a certain amount of ingredients, just having the minimal technologies, for example, pasteurization, UHT or whatever. It's more than that. And I think a lot of startups and a lot of, world leaders, corporates are bringing those technologies to help supply the food products for the future requirements. So I think that's really interesting and it's going to move really fast. So I think in 10 years' time, even 10 years' time, we will see different types of food that we are eating today. Maybe in the same format, but the way that it's made.
So we need to come back in THAIFEX-Anuga 2032
yes.
and see what's changed.
That's right.
I think that's really good segue, Dr. Akeanong, because one of the things that needs to happen, I think, is if governments don't get behind development of new technologies, then we're not going to address these problems. They need to be a facilitator, not a block to new technologies.
Yeah, so I'll come back to the government part later, but you asked first what are we exciting about food technology or food industry nowadays. Well, I think during like two years during the pandemic, I myself get exciting. What are we eating? And then also the changing behavior of the consumer. That is the key driver for what we are seeing today for the moving with the exponential rate, as you mentioned, of the food business. So what we eat today and what is also exciting, and I'm curious to know what are we going to eat in the new decade. When we are in 2030, when we are saying that we will have more and more aging population, what are those people would eat? By that years, I would be also part of that population. So I wonder what food I would be eating. And also I want to age with a healthy human being. So I don't want to get ill. So what I need to prepare myself, so that's to me, that is also exciting. And also, another thing is that I start to see countries in Asia using a lot of their local ingredients to produce food that meet the need of the consumer. For example, in Thailand, we have a lot of variety of local ingredients, local food ingredients that good for the health benefits. So that's also the exciting in research and development world. That's how could we use all these local ingredients? How could we feed the world with what we have now? And I'll go back to your points about the government. So because Foodinopolis is a government initiative to be the innovation platform for food industry. So with this kind of changing, the pace of changing technologies in food business, we cannot sit back. So we have to support food tech startup in particular for them to come up with new or innovative technologies and help them to work with larger company or get them to meet the investor or the strategic partner in the future so that they could help come up with very interesting and innovative food products.
So I think you touched on a few really good points there, Dr. Akeanong. I mean, I think the concept of health span rather than lifespan. There's no point in living to 100 if you last 30 years you're not healthy and all you're doing is waiting to die, basically. Whereas having that health span with some of the functional ingredients, are you seeing that in industry, Dr. Lalana?
Yes, we see that as well. So for the elderly population, we are also looking into that because we want our consumers to age happily, right, and also healthily as well. So the elderly people, they need to eat nutritious food, and when they age they can only eat a small amount. So in that small amount that they will consume, it has to be full of nutrients, and those nutrients must be able to prevent them from getting diseases, also to revive them so that they are healthy and can age happily. So there's a lot to do in the elderly food space, and also people who are aged, they have trouble swallowing, so dysphagia, they have other symptoms, for example, Alzheimer's and everything like that. So how do we provide them with the right nutrition so that they can prolong those symptoms and even get over those symptoms as well. So I think with the elderly food, it's a big space, and also in Asia, we are already approaching the elderly population. So yes, the industry has to address that.
Because I think you've almost got two polar opposite consumers. You've got the very young, the Gen Alphas and the Gen Zs, but then you've got the elderly population, the boomers and beyond, who are demanding slightly different things and who are comfortable with different levels of technology in their food. So it's going to be interesting to see how industry copes with it. And are you seeing any, Dr. Akeanong, any particular range of startups coming to you or taking your attention?
Well, we at Foodinopolis, we run accelerator for food tech startup as well. I see a lot of them working on, part of it is, of course, alternative proteins. And the others, or I would say majority, would be functional food, functional ingredients. Not only the startup that in our accelerators, but the SMEs that we are working with. The key challenge is to come up with the food that meet the needs of the consumers. And the consumer is nowadays, when we talk about functional ingredients, functional food, and the demand of the consumers, they're not eating just for health benefit or physical health, but we start to see a lot of food that's good for mind as well. So we start to see food that help people that maybe get when they get depressed, what they would eat. Why they get depressed? Because in these past 2 years, they in the stage of something that they don't expect before. So functional food, functional ingredients, I think it's come along with alternative protein, plant-based. We will start to see a lot of that. And that is the challenge, because when you put all these ingredients into your food and you want to claim the health benefits, it's a lot more to invest along the chain before the product get to the market, and you can claim that. So that's also the things that food industry have to, in terms of investment, they have to put a lot on this. Yeah.
I think that's right. That's sort of what I'm seeing on a global basis, is that people used to eat for good tasting fuel, and now they want to eat, I call it personalised wellness. And wellness meaning not just my body, but my cognitive health, my emotional health, I'm sleeping properly, I'm getting everything. So people are not content anymore with just having, it tastes good and it's calories. It's like, well, no, what's it going to do for me? Well, how's it going to help me in my life rather than just, gee, it tastes good and that's it.
Yeah, so it's more like functional food, right? So food to address specific symptoms. And going back to the elderly before that you asked, I think the availability of localized food for the elderly, it's still very minimal because like especially in Thailand and in Asia, we have our special localized taste, right? Yeah. And if you have like elderly food that is maybe from Western origin, the Thai elderly people may not be used to that taste, and so they don't feel happy to eat it. So then they become, you know, lacking the nutrition because they can't eat their normal food, but they also can't eat the foods that are coming from Western origin. So I think that's a problem that needs to be addressed as well. So having localized elderly food for Thailand and also for the Asian market as well.
Yeah, because I mean, the elderly people, they've basically culturally grown up with a certain flavours and certain way of eating that they're comfortable with, and that's what they want to continue with if they can. And simply going to serve them a hamburger, no matter how good it is for them, is really not going to do it, is it? You need to localise it by that. And that's why I think it's so wonderful. So when I first came to THAIFEX-Anuga back in 2019, the dim dark days before COVID, I was so impressed with the startup culture in Thailand. I think it's phenomenal, and I think anyone from Australia, etc., who doesn't come and see THAIFEX-Anuga is absolutely mad. They need to come and see what's going on in the region. It's such a vibrant food industry and startup culture here in Thailand. And I think that that ability to localise for the Asian markets is very, very important part of what we're doing. And from what I see, I don't see that Thailand or Asia are followers anymore. They're starting to take the lead in what's going on. I mean, you've got your Meat Zero products taking the lead in what's going on in the region. We've got the people I mentioned like Shiok and Selex, all these sorts of people who are driving local innovation in the space. Talking about that, how are you seeing the investment space at the moment for startups? Is there a lot of money around? Is startup harder to get? What's the situation there in the region?
Well, I might take this first. Well, as I mentioned, I'm working with this food tech startup, and we are government accelerator. So we help them, we coach them, we mentor them. I would say in terms of availability of the money for them in the market, there's a lot. But the challenge for us as a government to groom them is how could we dress them up to be ready for those money available? So that's the challenge.
Yeah, because a lot of the times the startup people running startups have very little business experience, and they're great ideas and maybe great scientists, but trying to get a team together that appeals to investors that will show that their money is going to grow the company and not just make something that somebody loves but has no commercial benefit.
We got good people, we got good scientists, we got good team in Thailand. But we just need to, like as you mentioned, make them appeal to investor, and not only the investor in Thailand as well. We have done one cohort of accelerators, and those that graduate from our accelerators also get interest from the Singapore accelerator as well. So we send them further to Singapore because what we do, since we are government, so we doing very early stage of food tech startup, and then after they finish from us, they could go to others accelerator as well.
Because that's what I'm seeing. Sorry, Lalana, is that if you've got a good idea, I'm seeing companies from the States invest in Singapore and Thailand companies in Singapore investing in Australia. If you've got a good idea and you present it correctly, as you say, then you can get funding from somewhere, but you've got to get it right.
Yeah.
Dr. Lalana?
Yeah, so Tony, I'm really fond of the startup space, especially in Thailand and also globally as well. And I've been really amazed within the last 5 years, there's been so much food tech investments. And before that, you never heard of food tech investments before. It's more like telecommunications, robotics or whatever. But now, within the last 5 years, there's been so many food tech investments. And last year alone, 2021, I think there's been about 40 million US dollars, right, 40 billion actually US dollars in the food tech space investment. So that's a huge amount considering maybe 10 years ago there would be hardly any food tech investments. And there's several categories for the food tech investments. For example, ingredients, right? In the food waste, in traceability, in restaurant tech as well, and in personalized nutrition. But the biggest space probably would be in alternative proteins, as you mentioned before, and also in e-commerce and distribution as well. So it's actually really spread out throughout the food industry for the food tech investments. And I think what the VCs are looking for is IP and the ability to scale and how big the market is. And also, is it a crowded space already? So I think, these particular points are really important. Apart from, if you can attract the VCs, if there's white space, I think IP is important. If you've got something that you can protect and be able to scale.
Because as you say, we've seen such a huge increase. Go back to those couple of landscapes. And huge increase in the number of companies around, and I struggle with some of these companies to see what's different about company A and company Z and company G in between. Like, what is different about these companies? Is it getting more and more difficult to find a unique point of difference in the marketplace, in the startups?
Yes, when we work with startup in our accelerators, we try to make them think of not the local market or the regional market. You have to solve the problem of the bigger markets, and that means they have to be unique. So you cannot be the solutions for everyone, but you have to be one solution that that person cannot live without your solution. So that's what they have to find their uniqueness. That's that challenging, and also I think for me working with early stage startup, it's kind of a challenge for accelerator as well to change their mind, because they are more like researchers turned entrepreneurs. So we have to equip them with different lens of how they view the world. So that's also we want to teach them not to fall in love with their own baby. Then they will find a uniqueness.
Yes, because once you fall in love with your baby, you keep going no matter whether it's ugly or not.
So actually adding to that, I think team composition is really important. Okay, in a startup, you need someone really strong in the science and technology, but you also need someone in marketing. You also need someone in management. So to form a complete team, you need various expertise, not just scientists who can do, great in the lab but don't know how to sell their products. So I think team composition is really important for startups.
And I think the other thing I look for when I'm looking at startups and saying, will this technology take off, is I look for when a startup teams up with a major player. So like our example, Perfect Day.
Yeah.
They were just going along and then they teamed up with ADM, $62 billion US ingredients company that had all the things the startup didn't. Sales, marketing, production expertise, everything else. And they've gone on from there to raise $750 million US dollars. I figure they've got over the scale-up valley of death there. I think they're probably on a bit of a winner.
Yeah, so that's why corporates are teaming up with startups, because we have to complement each other. Like corporates, for example, like CP, we have the distribution, we have the marketing arm, but as the news has been released, we teamed up with Future Meats.
Yep.
They've got the technology, and we also have the technology, but in the plant-based area. So with the cell-based and the plant-based, we can make hybrid products. So it's bringing the strength of both worlds, right? Bringing the strength of both companies together and launching it into the market. So I think when you partner up with a startup, you just have to see how we can become strategic partners and help each other along so that you can make that mission possible.
Yeah, I think that's right, because if you're both got exactly the same set of skills,
that's right.
it really doesn't make much difference, does it?
It's not complementing.
No. Well, I'm going to save my last question until the very, very end, which is going to be, give you time to think about it, stare into your crystal ball and tell me what 2032 is going to look like. So I'm not going to ask you now, we're going to go to the audience. Do we have any questions from the audience for our panel? Do we have a microphone? Any questions from the audience for our panel? No. I'm a little bit shy at the moment. Well, I'll go to one that I had. We mentioned the use of AI in startups and so on, and in food, and that's one of my accelerator technologies. Are you guys seeing a lot of use of AI coming through in either in startups or in companies you're dealing with?
Yeah, for AI, it's a lot on prediction. Flavor prediction, trend prediction, and also in formulation as well, right? And also in quality control. So a lot of AI is being used in those areas. I think that's really good because it helps corporates like us predict the future, predict what raw materials we should use. So technology is really helpful, and it saves us time as well, right? With the AI prediction, and there's more accuracy.
Yeah. And I
than
think
just guessing, I suppose.
And I think the thing is with AI, it can consider a number of formulations the human brain can't even conceive of. My favourite one is Notco, who make plant-based milk. They put cabbage and banana flavours into the milk because the AI told them there were some components in there. And that might sound funny, but how many times, maybe if you tune into a wine channel, it smells of apricots with some fruit salad. So we use those descriptors for wine. Why not for milk? Milk may have a slight cabbage odour that we don't pick up, but the AI thinks it does. Yeah. So I think that's, that sort of ability to, as you say, Dr. Lalana, to predict what will happen and consider things the human brain can't even do in a decade.
That's right.
And Dr. Akeanong, are you seeing any one of your startups who are bringing any AI to the table, or?
Not much, but we'll start to see some of that. And using all those data-driven technologies to work with. We have one of them here to doing the sensory evaluation.
Yep.
And not much in terms of very innovative technology. But yes, we start to see those. We start to see one of them trying to use AI technologies to work in the areas of functional food, functional ingredients as well. But it's still at the proof of concept.
One of the things that I mentioned was some of these new technologies, they don't need arable land or fresh water, so countries that don't have a lot of that can actually grow a lot of their own food. Do you think that localisation of production is going to help, particularly when we think about the Ukraine crisis, the price of wheat doubling from something that's literally around the other side of the world? So do you think that our ability to maybe localise some of our food ingredients might be an advantage?
Yeah, I see that coming because especially with the problems that we face with the war and also with COVID, it's getting more and more difficult to rely on imports and exports, right? So people have to rely on their local sources more because, for example, if you're importing the supply, recently, I think yesterday or something, Malaysia, they announced that they're going to ban the export of chicken to Singapore. And poor Singapore, I think Singapore, they rely on 30-something% of their chicken supply from Malaysia.
Yeah.
So I think Singapore have to start thinking of, how can they rely on their local food resources. And it could happen to us. It could happen to any other country as well. So
Yeah, I've heard that Israel apparently gets 30% of its eggs from the Ukraine.
Oh, okay.
They're not getting 30% of their eggs anymore in Israel because of a war in Ukraine. So just this whole business of that we're going to feed the world by shipping products all around the planet, I think we've seen under COVID, and particularly the Ukraine crisis has focused on one part of the system. We're seeing the cracks. The global food system is great when everything works perfectly.
Yes.
When you see a problem, the ability of the system to react is not very good at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree on that because I think to a certain extent we have to be reliant on ourselves, right? And then, okay, for the luxury of, having other Western food or whatever, then that can be additional. But for the main food that we are consuming, we should really rely on our regional ingredients and products. Yeah,
I think that makes a lot of sense. Dr. Akeanong, what are you seeing in the startups that are coming to you? Is there any particular category that seems to be getting more popular in the startups that are coming to you?
Do you mean product?
Yeah, product-wise or,
I would say, as I mentioned earlier, the alternative protein, functional food, functional ingredients, they're mainstream in our accelerators now. And not much in terms of processing technologies. So we see more on the product side of it.
And is it so you do very early stage investing, and then you look to then pass those investment-ready companies to VCs or to other accelerators?
The one I'm taking into my accelerator is technology readiness level, or TIL, only like 5 or 6. And then we're trying to help them to meet the potential partner that can take them further. So it's quite early. So if you look in Thailand food innovation ecosystem, we don't see much of the people or the government or private sectors helping early stage startups. So I think we'll fill that gap, and then we get them ready for the next round.
Because that's the highest risk, isn't it? The very, very early stage, and the government can take that risk if it's got the risk appetite to do that. And I think that's a terrific way of doing things because...
if you have time after this, we have like 10 of them over here.
Oh, yes. I had a little bit of a look around yesterday and was impressed with all the companies I saw.
Yesterday was another 10. This is the new 10.
New 10. Okay, definitely.
We have 6 days. For first 3 days and first 10 and then another 10.
Definitely.
And they, I may take this for the PR and marketing for them. They do the pitching as well. It's on the website of, I think it's on the webpage of Futurist-Anuga. So you can
great.
them up
Definitely
there.
going to go and have a look because there's some fascinating companies around, that's for sure. So we're down to our last few minutes, so I've given you time to think about what THAIFEX-Anuga 2032 will look like. Who would like to be first cab off the rank?
I think I could find some of the 3D printing, just like Nespresso. And I think that would come maybe like 5 years, maybe less than 10 years. I could maybe purchase it on a THAIFEX.
So you
And
think
that would be like home appliance.
Oh, you were going to say, so you think of home appliances, 3D printed home appliances. And if you think that, and that will obviously be personalised for people, so it'll take their functional, just like our friend, Walter Davis, he'll have his AI there
Instead
telling what
of
to do.
buying Nespresso machine, it would call, well, I don't know, something machine. Food presso or something.
Patent the name and get the domain name for that one straight away. Okay, as soon as you leave, go get that one.
I can print food for elderly people. I can print edible insect protein in that machine. So it has to be very multifunction,
very
so
flexible.
that I can print my own food with
very-
full of nutrients.
And of course, that's a great opportunity for CPF to supply the ingredients to your 3D printer to print your food.
Yeah. So actually, my idea is quite similar to Dr. Akeanong. I was going to say personalized food, right? Because everyone has different health conditions, different requirements. So in the future, you may be able to enter your health profile and then let the machine or whatever AI predict what type of food you should eat in each daily meal, and then have that, supplied, delivered. Because within 10 years, right, convenience, I think, is king.
Yeah.
Convenience, quality, and also food for personalized health, and also NCDs. So these, I think, would be, the top trends for the next 10 years.
Absolutely. I think that personalised wellness, because we are all so different how we react to food, that we need something that's personalised for us. How many people have had a diet recommended to them by their friend? I lost 5 kilos, I feel great. You try it, you put on 5 kilos, and never been more depressed in your life.
That's right.
That's because we are all so dramatically different in the way that we process our food and get our nutrition. So I think that's a really good end point, if you like, for thinking about how all these new technologies will come together. Because if we don't have some sort of framework as to how the technology would come together, then it's the old one, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
Yeah.
So if we know that we're going towards a future where personalised wellness, where food for us as individuals is the most important thing, then 3D printing, personalised wellness, I think that's probably the spot at which we should finish it. I think we're going to get much better than that. So, ladies and gentlemen, please thank Dr. Lalana and Dr. Akeanong for their time. Thank you.
สวัสดีค่ะ